time for us to kick things off. Matt, are you going to share screen, or you want me to do it, or what?
I was just getting the recording started, and then I was going to share the screen.
Okay, thanks. Great. So we'll call the meeting to order, and I believe we've done a roll call for all practical purposes. We got Dan and Rich and Ann. Nate's on. It saddens me to say that we're missing a valued member. And of course, the last time we were together, as I was reading the agenda or the minutes from the meeting, the final comment was that Dick Bratton gave us his, expressed his heartfelt gratitude to this group of people. And it just reminded me that we were all together, and the next day Dick was gone, and it's a really great loss for our town and for our committee. And I know everyone who knew Dick is missing him today. So let's, shall we do the Pledge of Allegiance? Do you have a flag for us, Matt? Or do I need to find a flag on my computer and wave it?
There it is.
There we go.
There it is.
Okay. All right. Are we ready? I pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the
United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. All right. Back to our.
You can get that flag for $34.95.
Bargain.
It's going as quick as I could, guys. Sorry.
Matt.
Johnny on the spot.
Yeah, that was great. That was fantastic. It's better than you unfolding the flag and holding it up in front of your camera.
Yeah.
All right. So on item 2, additions, deletions, or corrections to the agenda, I do have an addition. I also realized in reading our last minutes that we had lost our vice chairman in Dick Bratton. And one of the things that we need to do tonight is to elect a vice chair. I don't know. That's just something we need to add here to the agenda.
What would you say to adding it after reports?
That'd be great. That'd be great.
Cool.
Thank you. So does anyone have any other additions, deletions, or corrections to this agenda for this evening? None? Okay. So next item on our agenda is the 3-minute opportunity for people to talk who are not present. I think that's what we call. None of us are present, but it's just the opportunity for people to have a voice. And I know for a fact that there are people who came tonight who wanted to have some time to speak. And so I think Dory Guyan is one. Is Dory on with us tonight?
David, my apologies. If we're changing the agenda, we got to technically vote on it.
Oh, we do. Okay, I'm sorry.
No, you're
Well,
fine.
you need to keep us. Yeah, you need to keep us straight, Matt, on the parliamentary procedures here.
I'm all for informal processes. It's just with an agenda, especially when you're making a change to it. We have to move to have the. In this case, we could say the agenda addition as discussed, and then second it, and then vote it on.
Okay.
Okay, I move we put that on the agenda.
Second.
I'll second it.
Dan. All in favor?
Aye.
Great.
Perfect.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, guys.
All right, now we can move to item 3 for public comment. And so, Dory, are you with us tonight?
David, she just got into the room. I'm admitting her now.
Oh, okay.
Looks like she is on now.
Dory?
She's still muted.
Dory? Can you
Got
hear
it,
us?
got it.
Right. Well, this is David Douglas, and we just got down to our agenda item where public comment is open for you to speak. And I knew that you had some things you wanted to address with our committee tonight.
Yes, thank you, David. And I'm sorry I'm late. I started on time. It's just taken me this long to get the Zoom to cooperate with me. And I have looked at your agenda and I have looked at your maps, which are highly interesting because the part that I want to address is in your maps as being a problem area.
Excellent. Do you have further comments, Dory?
The pictures that you posted farther down in your agenda, you can see right where my house is, and there is one mistake in your, I think I'm seeing a mistake in, it's the first area you've posted that's, you say it's a problem after you show the good areas.
What,
This one right here, 18.
18, okay. Matt, do you see that?
This area right here that you've showed the oval is a lot of dead trees that I've been approaching the town about, and I was getting a lot of help from Mallory, but of course she's gone. And since then, when I tried again, they're not being non-responsive, but they're just saying they don't know what's going on. My statement that I want to say about the problem with the map, the oval here, the picture is great, but when you transport it over here onto the map, can you see where I'm putting a cursor?
No, we can't see you.
Okay, right in the middle of that oval, the white part shows the existing road.
Yes.
That is actually where my house is, and that's not where the dead trees are. This oval should be moved over to the left where it sort of looks like a rectangle bordered by white.
Okay.
That is where Bagwell's property is. It's next to Iona, across the road from me, and all those dead trees are in that area. It's Bagwell's property and perhaps, as you said, the right-of-way property, mix of Scott Avenue and right-of-way and private. And then it also goes up over Iona to where we built Angel's Trail, and to the east of that is Garrigg's property, and there's some dead trees on that property also. They are dead because they're diseased, and that's what's, the town says, well, they're dead trees. Can you prove they're diseased? Well, I had a arborist out to check the trees on my property, and I am now getting the disease from the trees across the road and above me. So that's my concern.
Well, thank you for bringing that to our attention, Dory. I know that you have been bringing it to the town's attention. And I think by protocol, I can't really address you specifically tonight on what actions, but I think what we'll do is take this up later in the evening in our agenda in the discussion.
Okay, fine.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And so are there other people who would like to make comment?
We had Todd Dixon sign up for a comment this evening as well.
Yeah, hey, thanks, folks. I just have a couple of announcements. And first off, for the record, Todd Dixon, 11045 Iona Avenue in Green Mountain Falls. We usually like to have folks say that on our meetings. First announcement is we're getting ready to kind of launch into our land use code rewrite. And we got a couple dates we're looking at right now. The first is right around the April 1st, where we're going to try to have a survey ready, and it'll likely be similar to what they did for parking. I don't know for sure yet, but that I'm kind of guessing it'll likely be something similar. And then the next date would be towards the end of April. I think right now we're targeting the 27th to have a community meeting on the land use code and zoning. And I would like to encourage you all to think about land use code items and zoning that we may need to update or redo as it applies to fire mitigation. And please take part in the survey when it becomes available. So that's the plug for the land use code. The other thing, there's been a couple of us that have been approached to write letters. Evidently, Green Mountain Falls has been nominated for the American Planning Association Award based on community resilience, and they're focusing in on the comp plan. And so if you have things that we might want to put in a support letter, I've drafted one up already. But yeah, if you have ideas that you might want to get in for that support letter, Matt has my email. Please forward them, Matt, and get them into me. I'm asking for them quickly by Saturday because this thing is actually due on Monday. I think we were just notified on Monday of this week or something like that. So yeah, those are my two announcements. And also kind of reiterate the dead tree thing that Dory's been mentioning. There's quite a few up in that ravine that honestly just need to go.
Yep.
So, and if you
so Todd, what's can I Matt, am I allowed to ask questions from during this segment?
You can. It's atypical, but I think with the informal settings we have, I wouldn't have a problem with it.
So what kind of input are you looking for by Saturday, Todd?
Things like here's some things that we're doing with respect to the comprehensive plan that address like fire mitigation and can be rolled in the community resilience umbrella. Just like you're identifying, the big thing is we've actually created the fire mitigation committee, and that's something that someone had already mentioned to me, and I'm already planning on putting into my letter. But if there's other specific things that you'd like to identify, for me to go ahead and try to wordsmith into this letter, that's basically just a support letter that we've done for other like grants. This is some kind of an award. I'm not even sure what the award is. The original message went to Julia and Rocco very graciously forwarded on to me, and I just kind of took it and ran with it, to go ahead and create another support letter to go into the system. So,
okay. Well, I encourage everybody that would, if you would mind, send Todd your thoughts on what he might include. Yeah. Thank you.
And the big thing for me is land use code and engaging when that survey comes out, because I'm sure we're going to probably get a lot of input, and we'll want to hash out and try to get things as good as we can get them. That's all I had.
Matt, do we have anyone else on the list?
I didn't have anybody else sign up, but if there are other people, it looks like we have some other people attending. So if they'd like to public comment, now is the time.
Okay. Anyone in attendance that would like to make comment?
Hey, Matt, this is Rocco. Can I just say a couple of words?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Hey, David, I'll do the presentation in a few minutes, but I did want to bring to your attention two people who I invited to tonight's meeting. Under the G7 Thin Q name, that is Ian Willis.
Okay.
He is a trained arborist. He has decades of experience removing trees. He lives here in town. And I've kind of been caretaking for Dick Bratton's house while his sister's out of town. And Ian's name was prominent on Dick Bratton's desk as someone to contact regarding fire mitigation. So I cornered Ian last week and said, hey, you interested in helping the town or attending the meeting? So he's here basically at Dick Bratton's request through me. He has a lot of experience, and I think it would behoove the committee to find the best way for Ian to help the community.
Wonderful.
Another gentleman who's, I think, still on is Scott Usman. And he has done a remarkable job of thinning his multiple acres between Belvedere and Hondo. And we'll see the results of his work in the presentation later. He's also a full-time Green Mountain Falls resident and former trustee. He has expressed interest in attending the meeting, and I think he would also be someone who could assist the committee.
Great.
All right. Thank you for extending those invitations, and thank you, Ian and Scott, for attending tonight. And we definitely will want to figure out how we get you officially plugged into the Fire Mitigation Committee so that we can draw on your experience and your interest. So thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Rocco, for inviting those folks. This is Dan Batten. I would definitely like to have Ian and Scott's phone numbers or emails so I can start communicating with them.
Yes, I agree. Put him
Dan's
on.
recruiting for his Fire Mitigation Committee. I can see that on subcommittee.
Absolutely.
Good for you, Dan. Okay. So Rocco, do you have those that you can share with Dan Batten?
I can. Ian, are you good with that? Just give me a thumbs up.
Yep, I'm good.
All right, I'll put you in touch with Dan Batten, and he's got quite a resume when it comes to firefighting and fire mitigation as well. So you guys can talk the same language.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right.
And how about you, Scott?
Yeah, I'm with that as well.
Perfect.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
Hey, Rocco, I'm sending you an email right now.
All right. Any other comments?
Yeah, if I may, just really quickly. This is
Sure.
Adrian Knight with Coalition for the Upper South Platte. I just wanted to give you guys a quick update. I had a meeting yesterday, and it sounds like our FEMA grant that we wrote for the town of Green Mountain Falls for the home hardening demonstration site and possibly some shipping days. As of right now, we still haven't heard back, but it sounds like we should be hearing within the next couple of months. So really kind of no news to share with the group, but I just wanted to let you guys know that still is a possibility. So still something to look forward to.
Okay. Thank you. And since we got you here, isn't there another grant that Michelle was working on for mitigation?
Yeah. So there was a furworm grant that we were working on that it sounds like they didn't like our price per acre, which is unfortunate just because that's the price of mitigation, especially in Green Mountain Falls. It's steep, it's thick, it's rocky. So I mean, it's going to cost. However, it sounds like another $6 million have been released for furworm grants, and those should be getting released, I believe, early April. So I think we're going to try and put together something else for April. still trying to get with Michelle on what we're going to include in that and different projects that we might try to include to bring the price per acre down a little bit by adding more acres.
Adrian, is there anything we can do to help? Is there acreage that the town owns that they can add into that that's not been added?
Right now, I'm not sure. I can definitely look into that, and I can shoot the whole group an email if there is something that we can think of that we might be able to plug into it.
Yeah, we probably need to look at the right of ways and any other acreage that the town might own and add it into that. That might bring down your price per acre.
Yeah, good. That's a good idea. I'll look into that and I'll let the group know what I find out.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Matt, you're going to have to keep me from violating the rules, but you know, since the question just came out about the map and what the town owns, can we flip down to the bottom and look at that map real quick? It's that Nate pulled together for us. That one right there. Yeah.
Yeah, we can absolutely do that.
Okay, great. So I don't know if everybody's had a chance to look at this or not, but Nate pulled this together for us, and I think it's excellent because it does show the town-owned property. And Nate, I guess you have confirmed all this is accurate. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's all from county, El Paso and Teller County Assessor's Office data. So unless there's a mistake in there, it should be accurate. And then a couple of the ones are noted where the ownership is blank, like letter E. I think that was the only one. I had one initially that I was able to correct. But yeah, it should be accurate. The acreages are from the assessment records as well.
It kind of looks like the Thomas Trail has a lot of acreage on it. I think that's Thomas Trail. I don't guarantee it.
Yeah, the Thomas Trail is what runs there just south of the red and blue cusp polygons there. That red trail.
Yeah.
Below that is Thomas.
Okay. I think all those acreages, if we can include them in that grant request, will probably bring down the cost of the acreage if they didn't get all those in there.
Adrian, does that help you any? I mean, or did you already know all of this?
I mean, any information's helpful. I think Thomas Trail, I think a lot of that area was included. That's just, you know, it's expensive acres. I can tell you, being one of the two people that was out there lugging chainsaws around, it's steep and it's rocky and there's lots of trees.
It's horrible.
So it's it's really expensive acres through there. So I think that is included in the grant, and hopefully in our rewrite we'll be able to get that and maybe get some more town-owned property. But I'm gonna have to look and see exactly how many acres we're trying to shoot for and what our ask is right now.
Okay, that'd be great.
Thank you, Adrian, for updating us.
Yeah, hopefully next time I'll have more news for you.
Great, thanks. And we appreciate you attending as well.
I appreciate you having me.
Okay, so if there's no other comment, then we will move to agenda item 4. And that is approval of the minutes from the last meeting. I would hope that everyone has read the minutes, and does anyone have any changes or anything from the minutes? Okay, may I have a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
Thank you very much. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
David, I also wanted to say I included the minutes from, I believe it was our 128 meeting.
Yeah.
With some corrections. We approved the corrections, but I wanted to make sure they were reflected and shown in an agenda packet as well.
Okay, thank you, Matt, for doing that. All right, well, let's move to our committee, subcommittee, I should say, reports. And And I think if I just kind of followed the way that Matt put together the packet, Rich, your evacuation plan is first on the list.
Well, good. Is it there? I don't have it.
So if you could just speak to that for, kind of, your thoughts on, where you are in this process. This is very, very good, by the way, in terms
Yeah,
of
basically, I'm kind of a committee of one right now. I had one person wanted to join and they didn't live in the town, so that was not feasible to do. And if you could bring up that evacuation plan
Hey,
again.
Matt, is that a requirement that somebody who wants to help on the subcommittee has to live in the town?
I don't know the answer to that question, but I would assume yes. So let me look
Yes,
into it.
it was my understanding that anybody that wanted to be on the committees had to be a resident of Green Mountain Falls.
Because they would fall under the same rules and procedures that the committees do in rules of procedure.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go with a safe yes on this one.
Okay, all right.
So basically, what I tried to do with this was keep it simple and put it in a format that people could understand and read rapidly and put into use. There's a lot of things that can come in from other committees on this, particularly pamphlets and things of that nature. If everybody's had a chance to read over it, it's kind of divided into 3 areas: before evacuation, during evacuation, and after return. Try to keep it as simple as possible, because if you write a whole bunch of stuff, people won't read it. It gets confusing. So I was wondering if anybody had any comments on it that I could either incorporate into it, or anything you might have suggestions on.
So one of the things on the evacuation, that was number B that you just passed there, Matt. We talk about evacuation zones, zone A, zone B, and then you talk about evacuation routes to be determined.
Yeah.
What is it that we need to do? Because this really gets to the heart of sort of people knowing, how and where.
I've looked at some of the evacuation routes, and I know Dan, he mentioned going up around the falls and coming back down that way, but I'm real reluctant to put anybody up on that road. If we can get them out by either coming down Hondo or down Belvedere, I would prefer to do that than try to send someone up into that canyon. I've looked at several of the roads in town, and I'll have to look at maps, and we'll have an overlay of a map that will kind of determine that. And then I know there was also talk of signs, and that will have to be a little longer process. I didn't come up with it currently, but
So
I believe.
But that's a future part of this, is to develop that map.
Yeah, I need an overlay basically of the whole town streets. And then we can sit down and look at those and say, okay, this is the best way to get out and the fastest way to get out. I don't think it'll take long to do once we get a map that we can sit down of the town and look at fairly close and say, okay, this is the best way to get out.
Matt, does the town have a map overlay that we can use, or Nate, do you have something that you can provide to Rich?
I'm sure we have something.
Yeah,
I don't know off the top of my. Oh, go ahead, Nate. Sorry.
No, go ahead. What were you gonna say?
I think yours was going to be a lot more productive than my answer.
Well, I was just gonna say that the map I produced for this, I mean, that's kind of it's basically a base map of the town. I mean, I can certainly create something more detailed with all the street labels and even some house numbers and things. I don't know if house numbers are
I'm not
necessary
too
for this
concerned
map,
about
but-
house numbers.
Right. But yeah, we could certainly just sit down and have all the streets labeled and just draw something out, like draw in those zones, and then I can
Yeah.
digitize all that so that it's neat, and create a map pretty easily, just starting with that town base map.
Yeah, that would be great. I don't think it'd take very long to develop that because it's kind of
No.
obvious as to where things dump out.
Right.
Mhm. Yeah.
Yeah, and even if you have, I'm just trying to think, if you are able to, do you have a scanner?
No, I don't.
Okay. I was just thinking if
You
you
look
were
at
able
what
to
I have,
draw
this
some,
computer.
or we could just meet in person sometime and just,
Yeah,
draw.
I was
can have
hoping. Yeah, I was kind of hoping before too much longer, some of these meetings could start meeting in person here as things progress over the next couple months. And
Yeah.
it really is kind of important that we kind of all get together and look at what we're going to do.
Yeah.
I don't
But I
have an
think that
exact
Yeah.
date. May is when we're looking at opening.
May is when we're looking at it.
Yeah.
That would be great. It
And I don't,
would help a lot to be able to meet together. Other than that, I checked with the county. I do know the county emergency manager, and they don't have a whole lot for us up here. Their guidelines are general in nature, and I don't know how much help they'll be. I'll get with him some more and talk to him some more. But I think if we develop the plan for just Green Mountain Falls and then present it to him, he'll just say, okay.
Okay.
yeah.
And the only other thing I checked on was the sirens for the emergency plan and the evacuation plan. There is a siren company down in Penrose. And I looked at it a couple ways. It's got to be an omnidirectional siren. And I looked at places that we could put it. And unfortunately, there's a mountain that divides the town. So we could probably put one either on Town Hall or up at the new fire station under the town's control. Or we could put one at town maintenance yard. Or the probably easier way to do is put one at each location. It's omnidirectional. It only reaches about a half mile, but it's a cheaper way to go than to try to get a omnidirectional siren put on top of Red Mountain or something, because the cost would be really prohibitive. Trying to look at costs and keep costs down and have a functional system that would work. There is a company down in, like I say, Penrose. I've not contacted them yet. Once I get the maps and stuff, I might drive down there and talk to them.
You have an idea on the cost? You said.
Well, with an omnidirectional large siren that covers about a mile, and it's got all the bells and whistles. You can activate by phone call and all that good stuff. And it would probably have to go up on Red Mountain or someplace up there. And just the siren base itself is like $23,000. So that just did not seem like a good viable option. Now the other way, if I talk to Century, get two smaller sirens, one in town and then one up by Town Hall or up at the fire station, wherever, and then have it activated by either computer or phone line or whatever. I think the cost will be less, but it's still going to be, I would imagine 10 or 12 grand.
But that's each? That's each?
No, that would probably be for both, because they only have to be those two sirens only have to reach about a half a mile. So, but like I say, I'll have to sit down with them. The dividing point there is Red Mountain or Red Devil Mountain. It's, the people that are in town would not hear it from the town hall nor the fire station, because it's not going to penetrate that mountain. Anybody lower than that mountain won't hear it. That's the problem we had with the siren that was on the fire station. You couldn't hear it everywhere you needed to hear it. And it was kind of cheap. but it'll have to be activated by certain personnel by either phone or something of that nature. And like I say, I need to get down to Penrose once I see the maps, and we'll sit down with them and see what kind of costs they come up with. But other than that, that's about all I've done.
Well, you've done a lot. I mean, this is a really great first run at this. Are there any questions or comments that any other of the committee members have with regard to the emergency evacuation plan?
I had a couple comments and one question.
Go ahead.
I guess maybe one of each. One is, Rich, is it possible if if a single or two sirens are cost prohibitive, is there a way to do multiple small sirens? I mean,
Well, once you get multiple small sirens, it's going to run into the same type price thing. Multiple small sirens, a couple smaller sirens running about $2,000 each or $3,000 each, right around that range. But then you kind of lose the operability of them to have the system tied all together.
right.
And tying a system together is what becomes kind of expensive.
So
The siren
basically,
itself, not too bad.
so a town audible siren is just going to be expensive. Sounds like.
Yeah, I think we could get it done maybe around 10 grand. I don't know. But
Well, I mean, what's our budget on this? I mean,
we don't have a budget, it's a problem.
Well, I think,
And if we get a grant, it's going to be a matching type grant. So regardless of how you look at it, I mean, we do have some budget, but regardless how you look at it, the town's going to have to match part of the grant if we get a grant. And I'm reluctant to throw a bunch of grants out there without the town approval and the town having the money to do it.
sure. All right.
well, I
And
think
then-
the way I see it from a timeline standpoint is we need to complete our work in terms of developing our emergency evacuation plan, along with all of the things that go with it, like the siren as an example, so that we can present this to the Board of Trustees with our recommendation for budgeted funds.
All right,
So,
okay.
I'm certain that the answer is correct, that we don't have any budgeted funds, but I think that's what our task is to say, okay, here's the plan, here's what's needed for effective implementation. And so the Board of Trustees has to provide that funding or at least consider it. Would you say, Matt?
I didn't say anything. I was agreeing.
No, I'm saying, is that
sorry.
correct?
Are you shaking your head?
Yeah, I was. Yeah, no, yes, that is correct.
Okay, thanks.
If
Can you guys hear me?
anybody
I
has
think I'm-
anything they want to add to this, please do.
I had one other thing that I wanted to mention
ahead.
was once the escape routes are established, should we look at whether those escape routes should be mitigated? I think one thing that you probably, if you saw that video, and when I say mitigated, I mean fuels mitigated. That video about the Paradise Fire, a big part of their escape route problems were that they weren't. They were heavily fuel loaded, and they weren't really safe places to be dilly-dallying. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's kind of a problem we have is mitigation of those areas. And it's going to come down to, once we establish the routes, it's going to come down to your committee under mitigation to say, okay, what do we need to do in these areas?
Right.
And then again, we're going to have to establish a cost for those areas. Is it on town property? If so,
Right.
the town's responsible for it, and how much is that going to cost? I hate to come back to that because I know the town doesn't have any money, but I know what's going to happen because I've seen it so many times.
Yeah.
We can do everything we can do and put the plan in place and say, here it is. And then it's up to the town to determine if they can come up with funds. A lot of it can be accomplished by grants. The only problem with those grants, they're usually matching grants, either 75, 25, 50, 50, or something like that. So you have to look at it in that aspect and say, okay, what can we do? And if we can get an emergency plan and we can do some things on our own without impacting a lot of budget, we're way ahead of the game.
Yeah, and on that, I would just say, you know, a lot of the grants that I have worked on and a lot of the grants that I've helped administer, you know, having a plan in place before you're asking for the money. So, for example, having those evacuation routes planned out, then asking for the money to mitigate makes you much more competitive. So I think that's a good plan to, you know, get those planned out first and then start worrying about mitigating.
Yeah, and Dan, if I can get with you and we can drive around and look at these routes, we can determine mitigation pretty quick.
Yeah, give me a call.
The routes are kind of limited. There's only a couple ways out of here.
I know.
So it's not real hard to figure out. So
David, sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say Ann Esch has her hand up to speak.
Oh, okay. Ann?
Well, I just wondered, you know, as I'm listening to all of you do this is great. And Matt, you know, once they've got this evacuation plan with Nate's help, you know, the overlay and all that, can the town establish a big email
Shut
list
that door, Quinn.
to get people this information? You know, not everybody looks at the town website, unfortunately. And if we had a master list of everybody in town that we possibly could reach.
You could certainly try for something like that. I think in my experience trying to cultivate lists, although I haven't worked with a town this small, so it certainly is possible. We'll just have to accept that there's some people who won't share any information with the town at all, no matter how much I ask. And so I don't want to leave those people out if I'm sending emails. And so I'm happy to collect, like, let's say, if people are interested and want to actively share. There was actually a service in Brush that we used. I cannot remember the name for the life of me, but it was an emergency notification software that was independent of the town as a third party. You sign up with your email address, and when, like, say the siren was activated, an email was automatically forwarded off. But like all the best things in life, it costs money. And so we'd have to figure out a way to afford that. Otherwise, it'll be manual emails. And so we don't use an email blasting software at all in Green Mountain Falls. And so let's say if we had 700 manually entered emails to send out, it gets kind of daunting after a while.
Yeah. Well, one thing we considered when the Hayman fire happened over 20 years ago was, in those days, it was like a telephone tree. You know, call your neighbor, be prepared as a street. How do we get together and get in the one car or something? You know,
one of the problems, and Dan's mentioned this on previous escapes, electronic notification doesn't work that well. There's a whole lot of people that just don't use it. Right. Particularly in this town, there's a lot of people that don't get on the internet. They don't have Facebook. They don't have those things. So probably the easiest way to notify people is through mailers or door hangers to each house, each cabin, whoever lives there, do a mass door hanging type thing. And so they understand if the siren goes off, they leave. It just depends on electronics. You're not going to get half the people.
Yeah, it's got to be a diverse method for sure. Yeah. And I didn't get the agenda early enough, and sorry, I haven't read your plan, Rich. Did we mention anything about community safety zones at all?
Yes.
In your plan?
Yes, there is.
Okay.
I don't like them, but it's all we got. You know, we've got
why don't you like them?
Area. I would like to have one more centered in town, but there's just not a good area to use. The park is just not a good idea. Everybody be swimming in the pond if they have to do that. I did use one was a school to the east and one was the fire department up there to the west, and kind of town hall area where you've got some cleared area that you can safely stay. In town itself, if we get a hard hit up through there, it's just not going to work.
Well, hopefully
But
those safety zones would but just be for people who couldn't get out, actually
Yeah, and
get out to the
that's basically
highway.
what they are. In the plan, it says, if you feel uncomfortable, leave now. If
Yeah.
there's smoke, if there's fire, get out.
Hopefully that's a plan B.
Don't wait for the evacuation plan.
Yeah.
And as far as warnings and alerts, I put in reverse 911, local media, social media, Twitter, Facebook, and orders, community siren notification, and I just put to be determined on there if we can get it, and in police direct notification. But
I think I saw something there about hardening structures. Did I see that?
Yeah, it's in the beginning. It's in the beginning
Strengthen
of
your
it.
home. Yeah.
There it is.
So
Yeah,
Todd, are you still on? Todd, are you still on? Todd Dixon? No, he left.
He is not.
If you look at number 4 there, it says review fire safe brochures for your home. Those are put out by the Forest Service and everybody else. So you can get those for free and we can put those out everywhere. Everybody in town can.
Yeah, I was going to ask Todd if they were going to add anything with regard to things to do to harden your home and make it more fire resistant.
There is a lot of handouts on that material for that from the State Forest Service, from the feds. There's just a ton of handouts on that stuff. I don't know, Dan, does the state put those stuff out now too?
No, the Forest Service does plenty for us. Yeah, that's actually part of what mine is. My subcommittee report's going to mention is I reached out to Dave Root with the Forest Service, and that's one of the things that I'll probably end up picking up is some of their piles and piles of literature that we can disseminate.
I probably have some of it in my garage. I'll give you.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that up at Netco they have a closet full of it as well. When I was the wildland coordinator there, I think we didn't give out nearly all the stuff that I had picked up. So there's plenty of brochures and literature out there,
and it's all free.
Yeah, I know the Forest Service office in Woodland Park has a whole room filled with those brochures. Also on that, the FEMA grant that I mentioned earlier, if we do get this and it does go through, that's one of the things that we have in this grant is we're going to take that garage that's at the base of Wallace Reserve at that trailhead and harden that and put up signs showing different ways to harden as a kind of showpiece for the town. So hopefully that'll be something else that we can point to as well to show people different methods and prices and different ideas to harden homes.
Yeah.
David, Ann had her hand up. Oh, sorry.
That's all right. Go ahead.
I was saying Ann had her hand up again to speak.
Well, I was just looking at David's notes that he put out on December 15th when you had a talk with David Root, and there was a lot in that. Dan wasn't on the committee yet, but that's still, a little foundation for him or others.
Yeah, Dave just has tons of stuff available.
And David,
as far as printed material, it's just
Well, David
you could
Douglas,
bring in falls or anything else.
Yeah, David Douglas had a conversation by telephone with him and made notes back in December, and those are of our record, I think. And there was, remember, David?
Yes, and I'm happy to send that to Dan.
Yeah, that'd be great. Are those not in the notes? They
probably were in the agenda packet. Matt, do you remember?
It's been a long time ago. We were just getting organized. in December.
Yeah.
If
Yeah, I
it
wasn't
was in
in the
December,
committee.
I wasn't actually here yet.
Oh,
No.
okay. Well, I'll tell you what,
And
Dan,
neither was I.
Dan, Rich, I will look for my email and send it to y'all.
Yeah, David, if you think that's valuable, my plan is just to have a sit down with David Root anyway. But yeah, if you feel like there's some good talking points to bring up, because like I said, this all kind of overlaps into my brief report. But basically, that's my plan, is to meet with Adrian's on the call tonight. But I just sent Adrian an email trying to set up a meeting with him. Basically, just get caught up on what has been done, what's in the hopper, and what we're thinking might be able to be done in the future. So.
Okay. So, Rich, sort of wrapping up here, what do you see as the next steps? Of course, Nate is going to help you by getting the town overlay. And you're still working on your siren system and trying to get some feel for what the right one is for the price and that sort of thing. What else are your next steps with this?
That's pretty much it. Unless anybody has any input as far as the evacuation plan, something they wanted added or deleted, I'll back up and start doing that in some type of format I don't know what the town uses for a format. So.
Okay.
I'm hesitant to throw this grenade, but
Go ahead. I like grenades.
Maybe, yeah. If we're maybe going to create a wish list to ask for funding from the city, maybe looking at hiring a third party consultant that can really advise us about how quickly this town can be evacuated. That kind of study. I don't know if that's something that they'd be willing to pay for or not, but that's valuable information to really kind of get a good idea of, how quickly could we actually empty out this town.
I love that idea.
Actually, it goes pretty fast. It doesn't do bad.
Yeah, well, and that'd be great to know. I mean, maybe I wouldn't want to give us any false confidence, but if we know that we can empty out this town in half an hour, that might make me feel a little bit better. But
Yeah,
I don't know.
I would say, from past experience, about 2 hours.
Yeah, and I
Would
feel
be
like
as
that's good
fast.
information to pass up to the county EM, and just that way they know what to expect whenever they've got a large incident, that's in this area that they need to deal with. So,
Yeah, our normal, anything from the county, you can depend on 2 hours. They don't guarantee anything within the first 2 hours.
yeah, but I mean, that might help them, because once it goes county responsibility, then state responsibility, or
Yeah.
that'll be good information for them to know that, hey, the trigger's been pulled. The estimate is 2 hours, 3 hours to have the town evacuated. Make your plan based on that.
That's something I'm not sure we could pull off without having an implementation of a plan and say, here's the plan, and then try to pull an actual evacuation drill or something of that nature.
Yeah.
That would give us a lot more information.
Well, Rich, why don't we just add that as a subsequent action? Maybe it's down the road, but
Yeah.
we capture that as a something that we need to look at.
Oh yeah, we definitely look at it. I'm trying to figure out where it should go.
Well, just, maybe you make it right at the end of your report that just says, this is a future action for the committee to really look at or recommend to the town.
Okay.
A spitball section.
Yeah, in the spitball section. Dan, if you get a chance to read over this thing, if you have anything that you would like to see, just please let me know.
Yeah, I'll read it tonight.
I'm not real greedy.
If
we can make it better, let's make it better.
I just had a quick question regarding the evacuation plan. I know I'm not a member, so I was trying to let everybody else talk before I got in with a little bit.
Go right ahead.
One thing that came to mind is I was trying to read it from the intended audience perspective, and I read the document that that's in the packet as being intended for residents, which is great. But then on the flip side of that is I feel like we need some kind of hierarchy or command structure of who would implement and activate the plan, and then who would actually communicate with citizens, get the word out, and move all that. And I understand fire department, town, there's separations and all that. But
Yeah, it would be the town clerk, town manager, and then the board.
and so what I'm thinking is it almost seems like we need one plan with two types of audiences. One for the residents, and then one for how the town could actually implement the plan in practice. Does that make sense?
Yes.
It does, but I think
the
that's
key.
something that council's going to have to develop as far as implementing the plan. I mean, we
Well,
can.
are they going to want a plan, a recommended plan from us?
Well, and that's where I'm trying to figure out how far we're trying to push this. Because if we're in the practice of developing the entire plan ourselves, I think we would have, at least in my opinion, include something for how town staff would actually implement this. If we had
and
to activate an evacuation.
That would be in an administrative section in the beginning of the plan,
Okay.
which says, okay, this is the hierarchy. First, you have mayor, town manager, city council. You have to have that hierarchy. And the reason the siren system has to have a call-in system where they can just pick up the phone and activate the sirens is because there's nobody in town hall most of the time.
Yeah.
So if we get a fire, they've got to be able to access everything in this plan remotely.
Yes.
Because they ain't going to come into town if once the pass or something gets closed.
Yes. Oh, I totally understand. In fact, out in Brush, I talk about Brush a lot, but I was there for a while. The siren system that they implemented could be activated from your smartphone. The chief of police, the fire chief, the town manager, I think the mayor all had access to this, and it was like codified in the plan itself. But that's cool that that's going to be included. I just wanted to make sure that 2 cents was shot
I think
out there.
it should be, and I don't know if this is something that you would want to do, David, but there should be. That's reason to be nice for us all to get together for a change. It should be something in an administrative statement in the beginning. This is how it's implemented.
Yeah.
The plan is going to be there. As far as them implementing everything, this is how it's going to be done. It's hard to say the fire department's going to do this, the fire department's going to do that. You have to keep in mind, we're implementing a program for the town of Green Mountain Falls, period. The fire department has a district.
Right.
They have plans for the entire district. So, I mean, this plan will go to the fire chief and it will get his approval. But it is the town's plan.
The
I mean,
second
a lot of people have the idea that the fire department is Green Mountain Falls Fire Department, and it's not. So I don't want to gum up the works a whole lot trying to get all this stuff in and out.
So I'll avoid gumming up any further. I just had one additional suggestion for the town implementation portion of this in the future. Is some kind of source cited that lists IGAs with other emergency management organizations. I think it'd be really great to have a clear idea of who we can count on in emergency situations when we need to count on them, and then have those agreements in plain sight.
In the town's emergency plan, they should have IGAs.
Yes.
Those should all be written in place already.
So that's not something that would be included in the plan as well, or the evacuation plan?
It can be in either a subsection of the plan or something of that nature, but the town should already have IGAs.
No, I'm aware. I'm not saying we go seek new ones out, but just understanding the array of IGAs that we currently have so we can draw upon them in an emergency situation.
And those could be a subsection of the plan, either in the back or in the front or wherever you want to put it. But the intergovernmental agreements, I don't mean to confuse anybody with IGAs, but intergovernmental agreements with the town are already in place.
Yes. Cool. That's all I got. Thanks, guys.
That's all I got.
All right. Thanks very much, Rich. Let's move to Dan, your committee mitigation. And I know Rocco Blasi, who's hopefully still on, had provided a report to help reinforce what Dory had to say earlier. I don't know if you want to use that or if you want any of Rocco to explain that, but this is your subcommittee report, so you lead us through it.
Well, my report's going to be extremely brief. All I've done as of now is just send out a few emails to set up a meeting so I can get some background information on where we are right now, what mitigation projects have been completed, one, which ones are in the hopper for the that are upcoming, two, and then what are we looking at long-term mitigation projects, and then all the ancillary topics that go along with that, with the funding and who's going to do the work, who has been doing the work, things like that. One of the topics that I want to talk to Dave Root about is some of the recent legislation that has passed here in Colorado with helping to fund mitigation efforts through the Colorado State Forest Service. So hopefully maybe we can see some of that state money come our way in Green Mountain Falls. And that's basically it. That's all I'm at right now. I guess, do we have a time frame in which we would like to have a plan submitted to the town, or is that something that's already even been done?
Well, I don't think that a formal mitigation plan has been submitted, but I'm so new, to the town. I may be misspeaking, but I think that is what we should be developing, is a sort of a master plan, if you will, for mitigation of fuel sources.
And that sounds like exactly what I'm thinking, and what I would like to do, if it hasn't already been done. Maybe Rocco already knows, and maybe Adrian might know. But if that plan doesn't exist and hasn't been presented, what would be the time frame that we would like to try to maybe get something like that to them?
I mean, I think what Rocco has put together here in this presentation really focuses on one particular area of mitigation, and there are many others. And I think what we need to do is sort of go through and develop, a plan of mitigation by prioritize and present that to the town board, and say, here are the mitigation projects that need to take place, and we need funding for these, and here are grants that are available, here are all these kind of things. But I think we need to have a master plan that can be carried out over the next weeks, months, years.
Okay. That's the end of my report.
Okay, thank you, Dan. Any questions for Dan from anyone?
I was just going to say, Dan, I got your email just before I hopped on this meeting. I sent you an email back.
Yep.
I think I'm probably going to be burning the rest of this week, but maybe we can find a time next week to meet and try and come up with something together. Maybe even meet out in the field and look at some, past mitigation projects and kind of see where we want to go from there.
No, absolutely. I'm busy. I'm out of town all this week anyway, so next week works perfect.
Perfect.
But yeah, I'll shoot you some dates, or I'll give you a phone call.
Right on. Sounds good.
Thanks, Adrian.
Hey, thank you.
Rocco, are you still with us?
I hope so.
All right. Do you mind going through this presentation that you pulled together? I think it's very helpful to the committee, and I would like for you to walk through it.
Yeah, happy to. Just to catch us up with some of the conversation. Last January 2020, I came up, drafted a grant proposal, largely developed with the help of Michelle Connolly at CUSP and reviewed by Adrian Knight at CUSP. They've been invaluable. They've really taken an interest in the town, to the betterment and the safety of our town. Dan, I will send you wording from that grant proposal. We call it the Healthy Forest Project Fire mitigation plays a large part in that. And our proposal, which did get $5,000 from the town, and then CUSP was able to do a 60-40 grant match, and we actually saw some results. So the purpose of the presentation, the slides and the pictures, is just to get you updated on where that money has been spent and what has happened. And if this committee wants to forward that on or discuss it with the trustees, it might help keep the trustees motivated when it comes to fire mitigation, when they see what the money has done so far. Rich, you were talking about the money battle in town.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to get money earmarked. It was like pulling teeth last year for the trustees to allocate the 5K. CUSP was creative and was able to find some matching money. Based on the success of that and some input from citizens when it came to the fiscal year 2021 budget for the town, the trustees did allocate $16,500 for fire mitigation. I think the first purpose of that would be to use as grant match money to try to leverage that funding to get more money. But there is some money already set aside for this year. I'd like to see it used for active fire mitigation. I know you had a proposal for sirens, things like that, but that's for your committee to decide what the priorities are for your budget. The town has already allocated $16,500 this year. So that's good news. Matt, can you?
Matt, are you able to display the presentation?
Yeah, I wasn't sure where to start, so I was waiting until I got
I think
some
that's
direction.
the beginning right there, number 8. Right, Rocco?
Yes, sir.
Great.
So feel free to ask questions as we go, interrupt as you feel the need to. I just hiked up early February up on the Bratton Trail. The Bratton Trail is below the Horseshoe. The Horseshoe is in between Belvedere Avenue and Highway 24. So it's north of Belvedere Avenue. So what I did is I walked up on the hillside and took pictures towards the south, towards Mount Rebecca and Hondo Avenue. The area that you see on this first slide is above and around Hondo Avenue. This was highlighted because this is what CUSP focused on from that Healthy Forest Project grant proposal. The proposal and the implementation leverages our trail system to get the sawyers into the work areas to do the cutting. We had a generous offer from a landowner who happens to be your chairman to use his property for the sawyers to walk through to get into the town land. There's about 25 acres of town land above the privately owned properties on Hondo. And so with that access, the sawyers were able to get in last summer and start doing some thinning and some mitigation. Now Adrian is on with us, so he has had boots on the ground up there, both supervising the crews that have been there and doing the work himself. We were able to make the money go further last summer by employing the SWIFT crews. Those are the low-risk inmates out of Canyon City that come up. They're learning job skills, and they come up pretty cheap to do some of the clearing work. So Adrian's been involved in that part as well. Let's go to the next slide. Here's some background. So this all came up since last May. For those of you who can't see the screen, it was a 60-40 match of this $5,000. And the whole plan was to try to protect the properties above Hondo, to create a buffer zone. As you work your way up that hillside, you get into Forest Service land. So this was a way to motivate both the private property owners below the town land, and ultimately, when your committee gets the Forest Service ear, show them what we've done to have them help connect that town land buffer zone with all the work between the Forest Service and Colorado Springs Utilities, what they've done up around the reservoirs. So the effort was to create a buffer zone and encourage expansion of defensible space for the private property owners. It's been, I think, a limited success so far, but we have more pictures to show you where you can see the goodness. At the bottom of the slide, it shows how it was done. As Adrian said earlier, it's very expensive to mitigate that steep hillside to get access in and out. The question was, what do we do with the slash material once the trees are cut? And so the lop and scatter method was employed to basically put all the slash low to the ground and take those canopy fuels, put them down closer to the ground where it's ultimately less of a canopy threat. And those types of ignitions, those canopy fires spread typically, I think, more quickly, but I have experts here that you can say what you will about it. But it's basically taking the fuels up towards the top of the trees, putting them down by the ground. Also cutting the boles or the trunks into usable firewood-sized pieces. That hillside, there are some firewood-sized pieces now, and it's just a matter of identifying the locations and getting some volunteers who want to get firewood to get in there and remove them. Questions so far? All right, let's move on. So this is one of many maps. I think you saw the map earlier that Nathan put together. He did a nice job on that. Unfortunately, it didn't make it into the presentation, but initially the area identified was above Hondo Ave. There's a section of, I think it's about 7 or 8 acres between Thomas Trail and the private properties above Hondo Ave. That's all town-owned land. And this was going to be the focus area. We'll show in a later slide the progress to date. Next slide. Okay, here's the work that was performed. 1.5 acres last summer. Due to COVID, there were size restrictions on the crews. The thing with Swift crews is they are also employed in actively suppressing ongoing fires. And so mitigation becomes a lower priority in those instances, but we did get them out for some time and some training, and their training days were actually free to the town. We had a couple of training days. They didn't remove a whole lot of trees, but we're talking 40 or 50 trees that they were able to remove. The removal area above those private properties, if you can look, and maybe we'll see it in some later pictures, but there's an aspen grove that kind of goes up and down that hillside. There's a spring that comes out near the Thomas Trail and some water that's close to the surface. And so the idea was to create room for those aspen to flourish because they're not as flammable, they're not as full as the terpenes like the evergreen trees. And so there is some success and some progress that we'll see in later pictures for that. So Adrian has come up subsequently with one of his coworkers because there was still money and time left on the project. They have removed or treated an additional 1.25 acres, which leaves 1.25 acres left. Once that happens, then the town will be invoiced for that $4,800 that they've already committed. And I think Adrian's just waiting on the snow to stop and the snow to thaw before he gets back out there and starts treating that hillside again. Adrian, do you have anything you want to talk about right now?
No, I mean, it's like you said, we're just waiting on conditions right now. Also, we did just get grant approval at Cusp to hire a field crew for the summer. So hopefully we'll have a field crew of 3. So once they come on, the snow starts melting, we should be able to get that 1.25 acres done much more quickly. Because I mean, I don't care if you're as great of a sawyer as I am, even with 2 people, it's a lot of work. So having 3 people will be great. So hopefully we'll get that done quickly.
Wonderful. All right, let's move on to the next slide. So this was, Adrian provided a very specific map with what's been treated, and this is what I just slapped on there. Basically, it's the western part of the area. Um, we're talking about 5 acres, 4.5, 5 acres total when it's all said and done. And let's look at some pictures of what it looks like. Next slide. All right, so this was incorporated from Nathan. Nathan was up, he had his drone, he did some aerial photography, and I've kind of highlighted the area that's been mitigated. Kind of in the center to the right of that red circle is the aspen grove that kind of goes up and down the hillside. As you go further to the right outside that circle, you enter Forest Service land. It comes down a little further because you get into Teller County. So this is pretty much the western end of the work area, and the crews will be working east from there because if they go any further west, it's not going to be town-owned land. Next slide. All right, just a couple other close-ups. I took these. They're not as good as the drone footage. Next slide. Here's a close-up of the aerial drone footage. Kind of to the right of this image has not been touched, and to the left it has. And it's pretty apparent that there's been some success and some progress on that hillside. Next slide. So here's where we get into the good news, which was encouraging private landowners to do their part. The circle to the very far right is the Usman property. That property stretches between Belvedere all the way up to Hondo. I think Scott is still on the call. Scott, can you tell us how many acres we're talking about for your property? He may have dropped off.
Yeah, I don't see him.
Okay, it's at least 6 acres, and he's over in Teller County there. But he noticed some disease affecting his trees, a lot of ponderosas, and he's created his own defensible space over there. The ellipse, the red ellipse to the left of that in the center of the image is Falls Avenue, and a lot of the homeowners there were seeing the disease coming down the hillside and decided to do some mitigation. So they hired different crews to come in and take care of their properties. I don't know who was involved in this, who kind of got the ball rolling. I don't know if they got a neighborhood discount, but that's the rumor that I heard, is they had enough properties to where it made sense for the contractor to give a discount to the property owners since they were spending time there. I was hearing chainsaws a lot last summer and fall, and I'll tell you, it was music to my ears because that's up above my backyard, and I know how bad the diseased and nuisance trees are up in that area. But this is a good news story that I think because there was the town interest and involvement in getting some mitigation crews further up the hillside, it got the people lower down interested in doing their part. Next slide. All right, this is further to the east of what's been actively mitigated. And you can see there's a lot of work to be done. If you look from Gazebo Lake up on the hillsides, you can see a lot of rust-colored evergreen trees. There's pockets of them, and it's coming down the hillside. So there's lots left to do. I think it is encouraging that the trustees have more than tripled the funding for fire mitigation this year, as opposed to last year. We have agencies like CUSP willing to help. And then we have people like Ian Willis and Scott Usman who know how to use a chainsaw, who I think are offering to assist how they can as well. So much bigger job than 3 people from CUSP coming out, but hopefully, you know, you get your plan together, and Dan, I can submit what we provided last year to CUSP, and they got some matching money. But that 16.5, if you can multiply that by 2, if you get $30,000 plus and multiple Sawyers up there, you can really make an impact on that hillside. Okay, next slide. All right, nuisance trees, and I think Todd Dixon's mention of updating the town code is very timely because nuisance trees are in the town code and how they are handled. Right now, it falls upon the town clerk. Of course, this code was written before we had a fire mitigation committee. So I think it's important for your committee to decide what your role is for nuisance trees. Because the town clerk, I don't think, has the expertise to identify this. He has a lot of other things on his plate. And since the code was written, we have this group that stood up. So this is a view, again, from looking across towards below Hondo Avenue from the Bratton Trail. It's a mix of right-of-way, and from what Dory said on the map, the ellipse is not quite accurate. It's a bigger problem than just the right-of-way. It's a mix of town land and private property, and so it needs to be addressed because it's spreading. It started, I think, up the hillside, it spread it down the hillside, down below Hondo Avenue, and it's spreading out from there. And so I think this needs the full attention of the Fire Mitigation Committee to identify what are the affected properties. Maybe get someone from the State Forest Service to figure out what in fact the issue is. Is it a disease? Is it an insect? Is it a fungus? And then figure out the best way to treat it. But for now, the way the code is written, the town is on the hook for being responsible for town land and also for holding the feet to the fire of the private property owners. I think there could be an opportunity here for both a stick and a carrot, the stick being ultimately the town code requires private property owners to remove nuisance trees. The stick could be having the Fire Mitigation Committee come in, bring the State Forest Service, do an assessment, work with the landowners to figure out the most cost-effective solution. So I think this is an opportunity for your committee to figure out where you plug in to the issue of nuisance trees, which Dory Guyan brought up earlier.
Excuse me, Rock. I believe the town code says if the property owners have dead or dying trees, they can be removed by the town and then billed back to the property owner.
I don't want to get into the specifics of the code. I think that's homework for the committee. It's not anything that I think we have time to solve tonight. I think if the homeowner does not comply with the town's direction, then the town goes in, like you said, and can remove and then charge the landowner, hold them responsible for the cost. Again, that's the stick approach, but I think there's some carrot approaches along the way to work with the landowners before it comes to that. But it's a serious issue, and it's an existential threat to our town, having these dead and diseased standing trees sprinkled throughout the town, close to properties and close to egress routes. And we got that Paradise Fire on our minds. We don't want to have egress routes blocked by downed trees and trapping people. So this is a big issue. I don't think it's anything we're going to solve tonight, but maybe just something to put on your homework. Look at the town code, figure out how your committee plugs in and how you can work with the town clerk and come up with wording, because it's a great opportunity now to get that town code updated with the Planning Commission for what you recommend. Poor Dory's been banging her head against the wall, I think, since the fall. She's worked with several different folks in the town administration. Ultimately, now it's fallen upon Matt, but I think your committee can assist Matt in the best way forward to solve this issue.
David, you're muted.
David, I think you're muted, sir.
Correct. Yeah, I would like to see some action put on this because, as Dory came on and talked earlier, she's been trying to get something done. And I mean, this is clearly a as Rocco pointed out, it's the town and its private property owners, and it is a clear and present danger. And I think there was some good ideas, Rocco, which was to have maybe the Forest Service come in and do an assessment. And they don't charge much to do that after having talked to David Root. Come up with a plan and let's present it to the town. But at the same time, I think we ought to use the current town code, and we have reviewed that in this committee previously. Go ahead and use the town code to get this done as it relates to the private landowner, which is, I think the first step is notification. You notify that they have trees and that they need to be removed. And I think, it's a matter of sending them a letter and say, you've got X amount of time. If you don't do it, we're going to do it and bill it to you. So, I think we need to start those processes moving forward. Matt, to your knowledge, do we have a process for people to bring that to the town or to you, to your position?
So they come directly to me and then provide me with documentation. And so if they provide me with sufficient documentation that proves to the definition of nuisance tree in our code, I'll act on it immediately.
Okay. And so do you have knowledge of, it sounds like Dory has really done a lot of work on this. Are you aware of or have seen any documentation she has presented?
Yes, I've been in direct correspondence with Dory as well. And I'm not trying to start any arguments or get into any tiffs or anything, but I'm not really fond of sharing correspondence with residents necessarily in public meetings, and because I don't want to paint them in a negative light in any way. But in the emails that I received, I only received 3 images of what seemingly were random trees that didn't necessarily have addresses corresponding to who the owners were, if they've been talked to previously. And there's a variety of steps that I have to take before I can violate private property and remove people's trees. So in this regard, I am actively reviewing information as it comes to me and then making the determination based on the information provided to me.
Yeah, sure. Is this a case where Nate, we talked about this in the last meeting, Nate, where you could help map the property, and with your drone flyover, we could actually identify the trees by property ownership, if you will, to say, here are the trees, here are the property owners, let's get on it. And in this case, the town is one of the property owners.
Well, I would argue the first step in this whole process is the neighbors of people with these trees communicating with the neighbors to get the process started. In the code, it specifies first and foremost that residents are responsible for their trees on their property. And before the government comes in and starts kicking doors in, I want to make sure that neighbors have interacted with one another and have tried to abate these issues. If that hasn't happened, then we can start the process of I'll send a letter out. And then once the letter goes out, that of course has a time interval from when I can act with them. I had a conversation with our lawyer to sort of clarify processes, because I'll tell you, I'm really uncomfortable with violating people's private property to go look at their trees. And so once I have evidence that supports a tree's nuisance level, the lawyer recommended that I cite them and force them into court before I go act on anything. And so the process is long. I don't just act and remove trees.
Right. Okay. I mean, good point. And I can't answer for Dory and whether or not she's followed that particular path or not in talking to her neighbor, but.
Well, and David, I think as soon as I get a hold of Dave Root and set up a meeting, that's one of the first topics I'll bring up with him is getting a forester out there to assess it, and actually maybe Matt that can provide you with an actual report of the true threat or the true level of nuisance, and that way you can go from there.
Well, yeah, or I mean, like I said earlier, I don't know if the property owner has been contacted about this. And
Sure.
so if before I go and tell them, hey, I got a Forest Service guy who's here to look at your property, I want to make sure that they've actually been talked to and communicated that they have an issue in the first place.
Well, and I'm sure that Dave will be very versed in how they go about doing this if they don't know if the homeowners or the landowners have been advised yet. So I'm sure they'll know.
And
I
the
don't
only
normally
reason I'm
say
so
I'm sure, but
hesitant to act immediately is because I have direct experience with my previous job in dealing with nuisance buildings. And we purposely did a delayed approach, although I understand fire mitigation, trees are different than buildings, just solely out of the idea of not using government overreach to act against private citizens when they could have the opportunity to do it themselves before we act in a process. And we had a lot of success in getting the residents of Brush to knock down their own buildings.
I was wondering if you were going to say Brush.
I know, I say Brush so much, I'm sorry, guys.
No, it's funny now.
Might I be allowed to speak here to the committee and Matt?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. Matt, I really appreciate your efforts and the fact that you're here, and I need to speak to you individually later, I'm sure. I have never spoken to those homeowners. They don't reside on that property. They're there on rare occasion during the summer. I've never met them. The parents that I think are probably deceased, I did speak to them years ago, but not about their trees. They weren't dead and dying at that time. I have a big problem with me going in and presenting codes to them. And do you realize you have to remove these trees, blah, blah, blah. That doesn't seem like it should be a homeowner's responsibility to explain what our codes and policies are. I don't know how well that would be accepted. Plus, they have many, if I know where their property is, there's a lot of trees bordering the Scott easement that is evidently town in that area someplace. And of course, I don't know where those property lines are, but there's many, many dead trees. And for somebody to analyze them, all they have to do is walk on Iona Avenue because they're leaning over the road or right beside the road. It's extremely easy to see. And the fact that you said you only got 3 images, I sent 8 or 9 to Mallory and then resent them to Julia, and Julia got them all because she identified them all. So maybe she didn't forward all of those emails to you, but there were 8 or 9 emails, and there were 8 or 9 different images in 3 of the emails, and they were identified as either being Bagwell trees or Gehrig trees. And I can't give you a Gehrig address because it only says Scott Avenue because there's no home on the property. And the Bagwell address I can give to you. But, you know, I really have a problem with me approaching neighbors about telling them what the codes are and how they have to remove their trees.
Well, and so I don't want to go back and forth all night. I just want to make sure you and I, Dory, have a conversation outside of this meeting one-on-one to get everything addressed, because it's not my intention to leave you hanging at all.
Thank you, Matt. And
I want to solve these issues.
Do want to talk to you for sure.
And so let's catch up after later on after this meeting.
Yes, thank you.
Great. But I do think Dan had a great idea as a next step, which is to bring in the Forest Service and let's have a professional opinion about it so that we can go to the town with regard to the town remediating its own property as well.
Well, and that was going to be my second half of this is one success we had, I'm not going to say the city I worked in another town that I worked in was, oh man.
Does it rhyme with hush?
You kill me. You're making me lose my train of thought. The actions of removing those nuisance buildings. I lost it. It's gone. I lost my train of thought. I just had to make a joke about Brush and ruin it. So there we go.
I'm sorry.
Thanks,
sorry.
Dan.
The town, were you going to say the town did it first?
Yeah, Nate, you read my mind. We targeted our property where we had nuisance buildings and knocked those down to incentivize, sort of along the lines with what Rocco was saying with the stick and the carrot, is to say we're doing it too. And I think we've talked about this previously, but if we target our property, I don't have to talk to anybody. I could just do it.
Yeah, that is all in the ordinance. we're not going to solve it tonight, but all that is in the ordinance. There is a procedure for all that.
Yeah.
Well,
And
and-
one of the first thing is try to figure out whose property it actually is.
Right.
Yeah,
And I was
I
going
think,
to say, oh,
go
sorry.
ahead.
Sorry, this is Nate. Just to answer David's original question, I can have orthophotography that is presented in a way where the parcel boundaries are overlaid on it. It wouldn't be these oblique angles, but it would be directly overhead. And the other thing to keep in mind, it wouldn't be like survey grade accurate as far as the parcel lines go, but it would give a general idea of this, you know, where is this dead, you know, this target area, you know, what do the parcel lines look like to, you know, at least start identifying property owners in that, you know, in any particular area.
Great. Nate,
Yeah.
would you work together with Dan? And let's put this as a actionable item in our next fire mitigation. So, Dan, somebody needs to mute. There we go. So, Dan, if you could get the Forestry Service, Nate, you could get the map overlay, and let's discuss this in the next mitigation committee meeting and make this actionable to take to the town. Does everybody agree to that?
Yes. And Matt, before we get off and before I forget, please share my email with Dory if you meet with her offline. And that way maybe I can set up a time to go actually walk the area with her. As soon as I hear back from Dave Root, I'll get that ball rolling. And then getting the Forest Service, I just wanted to credit Rocco. That's actually, it was his idea to get the Forest Service involved. But and then also, it's pretty easy to find the land ownership. I mean, there's actually a hunting app that's for maps that shows land ownership, and it just basically uses all the tax, the county assessor's information. So finding the ownership for that property is actually not too hard. Sometimes the owner is like a living trust or something like that, but like if these residents are people who own the property and they're not really around very often, you know, to be able to talk to them and start the conversation with them which is the way I would like to approach these types of things, is basically start the conversations and develop a relationship with them before we start beating them with sticks. But so I think that we've got a good actionable project, David. I agree, and I'm excited to get started on it. And I think the first step is, like you said, like Rocco said, get the Forest Service to give some kind of assessment. They'll give us some expertise and advice on how to address issues with the landowners that, you know, maybe, I'm not going to say that they're hostile, but unknown or hostile or whatever. And then we'll go from there.
Dan, let me reply to two items. One, I am in Florida right now. I can't meet with you, but I would be willing to bet you that Rocco would agree to do it because he knows everything I do. We've discussed it many times. And the overlay in slide 18 is absolutely excellent. I can name all those properties inside that oval and to the left of that oval as to who they belong to. It's showing the property lines beautifully.
Okay.
My property's there, Garrett's is there, Bagwell's is there. The white line coming up just to the left of the ellipse is Iona Trail going down. And so the green line coming up, or the green road looking thing, straight line, is Scott Avenue, which of course doesn't exist as an avenue. It's from the original plat. And so that's your town property right there. An excellent map. It's just the ellipse is in the wrong place. My property is the very center of the ellipse with the little white line, which is Iona. And just below on this slide, just below me, which is actually above me on the mountain, is the Garrig property. It's almost a square. And
I'm actually kind of familiar with that area. I used to live up on Hondo.
okay. The property at the there's another easement there that you can see that's on the right side of that ellipse, and that's another easement coming up between my property and Todd Dixon's property. And then the well, it's all just identified there.
Yeah.
The neighbors there could name all those properties. It's a very good map.
Okay, I think we have a plan.
Yes,
Next,
and Dan, Rocco hasn't spoken, but I think he would probably agree to meet with you and show you what we're talking about as being the problem. I'll be back in May, but I think I want to do something before May.
And we can set something up as this snow starts to melt.
Okay.
So good discussion. Just a little background, we are in a transition, and the town 10, 12 years ago used to employ a part-time forester. So it didn't fall totally upon the town clerk. So I think the town clerk has a lot on his plate. I think this committee has an opportunity to assist, and I'm glad to hear that you're willing to do that. So this is good.
well, thank you, Rocco and Dory, for attending tonight and bringing this to our attention more completely. All right, let's move to, I believe, Ann, do you have a report for us with regard to grants?
Sort of.
Okay.
I had reached out to, but I haven't heard back. The historic Green Mountain Falls people, Jesse Stroop and everyone. And I first contacted them because of the foundation in Oklahoma City and was informed that they only deal with Oklahoma. But then they put me in touch with a nice young lady, and she was going to email me back, but she hasn't yet. We had a nice talk about what's being done up on excuse me, Red Devil and so on. And I noticed that the contract that was signed with the town, they mentioned fire mitigation, and that is one of the efforts for the historic Green Mountain Falls Foundation. So I thought I would pursue that a little bit, if that's okay. And the other person I thought of was the El Pomar Foundation. These are private groups, of course. These are not government, but they often give grants for this purpose also. El Pomar has done that in the past, but I just wasn't having any luck getting to talk to anybody. Part of that is the plague that we're under. So I thought, if you don't mind, I'll just keep looking at that. And I did look at the National Urban Grant that Margaret had mentioned that's at the very end of our agenda. I've looked at that, and there is a person that you're supposed to get in touch with that it deals with Colorado, Wyoming, Nebraska, and Kansas, but I can't get in touch with them. It says click on this or call that, and nobody's there. And I think some people have resigned or quit or moved on. I don't know what's going on. So that's about all I've done. I've talked to some people, and I asked Matt if it was okay if I just made inquiries, and he said that would be fine, just to get some information about how to apply. So that's really all I've got at this point. One thing I did want to ask, when Rocco mentioned that the people on Falls Avenue got together as a group and got some work done just in their own little plot of, that street. I think that would be something to build on too. If we knew who those people are, maybe they would advise us to work on that as well. So, one more thing I'll mention, just with my report. I did talk with my insurance agent, because, two of our houses are over 100 years old over on Colorado. And we did mitigate all that years ago, that little part where we live, although there are a lot of trees around us that need attention. But my agent told me that when property changes hands in Green Mountain Falls or other areas where there's mitigation that needs to be done, they're probably not going to write insurance for those houses unless it has been mitigated. So that's just something that we should let people know. Insurance companies don't have to do business in bad areas. I had that happen back in the 80s when my dad had insured our little old houses. All of a sudden, we didn't have any insurance. And I called the insurance commissioner in Colorado, and they said, well, we can't make people do business here. So Jerry and I had everything insured with State Farm back in North Carolina, and we had $1 million liability clause, and we were able to grandfather all that in, to make sure we had the cabins safely insured. But that's just another informational thing. Dick Bratton and I had talked about it at length, and just another public thing that people may not know yet. So if it's all right with you, David, I'll just kind of keep puttering along trying to find information. And it sounds like Dan and Rich and everybody else knows so much, and Rocco, that I feel like I should resign from the committee and let you guys handle it, honestly.
Not at all. And if I may, I just finished a grant with El Pomar Foundation.
Oh, you
And
did?
all their grants are done online now, and they're redoing their web page, but it is very difficult to get through.
Yeah.
So.
I was looking at that. I was looking at it this morning, and and did make a little progress. I talked to the receptionist.
I felt pretty much stupid the whole way through. If you could mess it up, I messed it up. So.
Well, I'm glad that you know about it, and I've known about it because of I went to Colorado College back in the 50s, and had family around. But so if that's all right, David and the rest of you, if I just keep kind of reaching out and finding stuff, is that okay?
Sure.
Sure.
So everybody is clear, what I've asked Ann to do is be the keeper of record of all of the grants. I mean, what I've noticed is that people come forward and say, oh, there's a grant available over here for this or that. With this organization, the deadline for filing it is, this date. If we could have Ann be the central repository or point of keeping that list available and knowing, what grants are coming up, and so that we could get a report from her. So if you hear about something, if you would forward that to Ann, and she can report then, in each of our monthly meetings on, what is available and what the timeline is and what we need to be doing.
Yeah, because I noticed I did that early on when we first organized. And the trouble is, we'd missed a lot. And also, another nice thing that State Farm did, and they're not doing it now because of the plague, but they were giving $500 grants to homeowners to have their property assessed and mitigated. So we may find some private money out there through insurance companies, if you don't mind. If people want to send me stuff and I'll have a little file, that's fine, but I should probably pass it on to Matt, and they have a better record keeping. I don't know. But I'm glad to help in any way I can. That's all I can say. I'm pretty old. Dick Bratton and I are the same age, so I figure I'm next.
I can't be a whole lot behind you.
All right, thank you, Ann.
You're welcome.
Okay, I do not have anything of substance to report for education tonight, because I think a lot of the education is going to come on the heels of things like the evacuation plan, the mitigation plan. So as we get those to that point, then we'll really start building the education piece.
Oh, David, can I say one more? I just noticed something. This is Ann, do you mind?
Yes, go ahead.
The thing that Margaret sent out, I researched it, and it's mainly about planting trees in parks and stuff, where people are underprivileged. And I didn't think it had much to do with, we might have a chance, but it didn't sound too hopeful. Okay.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other member reports?
I just had a quick one, if that's okay.
Yes.
I know we're kind of pushing it with the times, but I just want to make sure I report back board actions to you guys. And so Nathan, you were approved as an alternate, and without you even asking, they also approved you as a member. So congrats.
Good.
Okay, thanks. I was wondering about that.
Yes. So yes, I wanted to make sure I got back to you guys on that. And then the second thing was the Board of Trustees is inviting both of the committees I work with, all of the members, to a collaboration session on 4/6 at 7 o'clock. It's basically what I'm gathering, discussion about our priorities and goals and how the board could assist the various committees. So I think it's very pertinent, based on the discussions we've had this evening, to have members attend that. That's all I got.
Okay. You'll be sending us more information on that then.
Definitely.
Thank you. All right. Thank you, Matt. Any other member reports or comments? All right. I think what we amended our agenda to do was elect a vice chair, and just to be clear, the vice chair position is, the responsibility is, of course, if I can't or don't show up for a meeting, you would be leading the meeting. It's conceivable, although we hadn't really talked about it, that the vice chair might ascend to the chairmanship in the next year. But so I guess what I would like to do is ask the committee members, is there anyone that just really wants to throw their name in the ring and or has a strong desire to be the vice chair of our committee? Wow, it's such a glamorous position.
all the power and glory that comes along with it.
I promise I'll show up for every meeting, so you don't have to leave. You don't have to leave the meeting.
So okay. Oh, see, okay.
I think it's a good job for you, Batten.
Yeah, you would.
Nate, we haven't got you as a subcommittee member. Is that?
I know. Hey, I will volunteer to do it. I'm not a subcommittee leader, so.
I'm not sure. Dan seemed to be very reluctant in his, as he was inching up to it. So, Dan, do you have an objection if Nate wants to take that position?
No, I was planning on trying to nominate him. I don't know if that was appropriate or not, but
Yeah, me too. I was going to nominate Nate. He lives in town.
All right, in that case,
Yeah.
it's official.
All
I
right,
guess.
well, Nate is nominated as to fill the vice chair position. And do we have a motion for the nomination?
So moved.
Second.
I will second it.
All right.
Good job.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Okay. Nate, congratulations. Not only are you a member of the Fire Mitigation Committee, you are now the vice chair.
He's
All
a
right.
fast burner.
One thing I would like to add here to this discussion, we had added Nate as an alternate. And I think, our two guests, Ian and Scott Usman, I'm not sure they're still on or not. I'm just wondering if either of them might be interested in being involved in our committee as alternates.
Good idea.
Rocco, if you want, forward me their contact info if they're comfortable with it, and I can send them applications.
Rocco, are you
So
there?
what I did is I gave Dan Batten some of their info. I'm not sure either of them are meeting type people. I think they're more like, let's go out on the ground and cut stuff down.
Good for them.
So, and I think that they've dropped off this meeting. I mean, the meetings run long and you guys are great volunteering your time for this. I'm not sure their interest lies in attending meetings.
Well, I think all of us feel that way, but
Could Rocco be a member? Would you be?
No, thank you.
believe me,
I'll
I've already
I'll
pressed them,
support
Rocco.
Dan and the fire mitigation stuff however I can behind the scenes. I got your back, Dan.
Thank you. I need it. And I'll take all the glory for you.
And I hate meetings, so.
Me
All right,
too.
well, shall we move to new business then? As I look at our list here, committee direction and project focus, I think we did that as we went along tonight. Would everybody agree with that? I think for every subcommittee, we sort of have developed some next steps, and I think we have some, I don't think there's a whole lot that we can really add to direction and project focus. We dealt with the town property identification map, showing recent, we've talked about that and some enhancements to that. Forest resilience grant opportunity. Is that the one you were referring to, Ann, earlier?
Yes, it is.
Okay. All right. Okay. So we've gotten a report there. So I've summarized that really quickly. Does anybody have any further comment there on any of those topics?
I will send grants. I won't include them in agendas from here on out unless we action them through Ann. I'll send everything to Ann from here on out if that's cool.
Thank you. Yes, thank you very much.
Oh, great.
And what is correspondence?
Letters.
Yeah, any communication that the committee might have with other organizations, groups, or within town staff or anybody. We didn't have anything. It's just a blanket agenda item that's included in all our agendas.
Okay. Well, I think we have come to the end of our 1 hour meeting 2 hours later.
Yeah.
Thank you all. I know it's, taking 2 hours out of an evening is not easy, and I really appreciate all of you. And of course, it's not just this meeting, it's the work that happens in between meetings. And so I really want to thank you all for being so engaged and helping to push this really important committee forward in the work that we're doing. So I'm enjoying working with you, and hopefully, as Rich was saying, we'll finally get to a point where we can have a meeting together, and I'm looking forward to that as well. So until then, I just wanted to say thanks to everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you,
all.
sir.
Thank
Have
you.
a good
All right.
evening.
We'll
Everybody.
So next meeting, the 28th of April. Is that
if
sound
that's
right?
the fourth, if that's the fourth Wednesday, yes.
Okay, I believe it is. 1, 2. All right, cool.
All right.
I don't put in the calendar, it doesn't happen.
Sorry, but just making sure before we go, are we going back to one meeting a month?
Yeah.
We did 2 this
I thought-
month.
We were going to have 2, weren't we?
We did 2 this month. I'm just asking. I feel like that kid at the end of class who asked, like, did you forget to assign homework?
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Did we have to? We didn't.
We
have 2
didn't.
meetings.
We didn't. I just wanted to make sure for my scheduling, because I don't want to lose myself, that we did 2 previously, but we're only going to do 1 next month.
We are doing 1 meeting per month.
Perfect.
Yeah. I don't remember
Love
us
it.
having 2
Okay,
meetings.
cool.
this
Sorry.
month.
I'm never going to talk about homework ever again. I used to work in Brush. All right, guys. Thanks.
That's probably how they did it in Brush.
1 meeting per month.
But
All
on
right.
April 6th, will we all tune into that meeting you mentioned, Matt, with the
That'll be
trustees?
the board meeting. So of course I'll what I'll do is I'll send out the link that I send to the trustees. It's just the same kind of stuff I send you guys to log in. And then I don't have a ton of information on exactly what they want from you guys, but I do know what they want attendance. And so I'll gather some more info from Angie. She'll be getting back from vacation, I believe Friday. And I'll send that out to everybody.
And
Great.
it would be in the evening, probably.
Yeah, 7 o'clock, unfortunately.
All right. Well, thanks everybody. I think meeting is adjourned.
Can
Thanks.
Matt and I still speak to each other?
Sure. Go
Thanks.
right ahead.
Absolutely. Let me stop the recording first.